Welcome to Vantage, Washington. We're having a party here. We got about 146 watching currently. I'm going to hang on until I see some live comments. There's a little bit of a delay. And first things first, we're going to make sure that we're communicating properly. Hello, Greg. You made it home. Very good. I see some comments now. And can I ask right off the bat, are we functional? Are we 5x5 with not only audio but video? Please say yes. Please say yes. Sid says 5x5. Oscar, possibly from San Diego. The Geekus in Alabama. Okay, looks like we're good. And you are Scott, Steve. Scott. So Scott's one guy. Okay, so let me show you who we got here, okay? Loosen things up. Thank you for joining us. I'll say some highs to a few more of you. I've got, sorry, if you're watching this in replay, I have 2:51 local time, and we will begin at the top of the hour at 3 o'clock. So in 9 minutes from now, we'll be doing this Ginkgo Petrified Forest show, I guess, live stream, and I'll explain the format and what we're doing. So we're going to screw around for 9 minutes. If you're watching this in replay, you can scrub ahead 9 minutes, right? You don't have to go watch all this stuff. But let's just show you who we have. See, and I asked some of these guys to get off their phone and put it in airplane mode so that they don't interfere. I don't even know if that's accurate. But they might watch themselves later on if they're not watching now. Oh, that guy's watching live. Yeah, man, yeah, you're looking good. We got a few others watching live. Oh, yeah. That's not Verizon, though, is it? Okay. Hey, oh, boy. All right. Does somebody want a job? Like when we're 20 minutes into this thing, if somebody could just casually count how many we have, I'd be curious. That's maybe not a job for somebody up here. I'd be curious. We have more than 75, I'd say that. Oh my God. Oh, we got Jeff from Vindman's Bakery. Woo! Wow. No. Oh my God. Well, you got 50. You've got mini downtowners. Yeah, we got 8 minutes. How do you want to do this, Jeff? Let's set the mini downtowners on this petrified log. This is perfect. Please come over. This is Jeff from Vindman's Bakery.
It might still be warm.
Okay. Oh, these are warm mini downtowners, please. Powdered sugar in your face here. Okay, they're downtowners. Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. We overdid our calories at your place already.
Oh, these guys have already visited, Jeff. Well, we'll just scrap the program. We'll just do like live Q&A about the bakery for the next hour. How about that? Yeah. All right. Woo, boy. Yeah, we got Backcountry Gary again. We got Cozy Fort Steve, the guy that made the apparatus for the Cozy Fort. He's here somewhere. Gary, you want to wave? There's Backcountry Gary. Oh, sorry. Gary. Backcountry Gary in the brown shirt, and these guys as well. Jack Powell, local celebrity geologist. Oh, there's pandemonium. All right, well, let's, so just for my own well-being, are we 5x5? Still. And I never know if I'm interfering with the 5x5 as I twirl around. but I really want to twirl around for you here. Thank you, Rotary Power. Okay, good. So we're nice and strong. My only concern now is I'm going to overheat. The sun is very strong, and those that are real loyal to the programs know that one show last fall about this time, the sun was so strong it overheated the phone and the thing just quit. So I don't know what to do about that, but I think we're probably okay because I just took the phone out of my pack. Let's say hi to a few of you guys, and then we will begin the program. We will start in about 5 minutes. There's free downtowners. There's free Danishes for you right over here. So where are you viewing from? Doug's from Jefferson City, Missouri. Vancouver, Washington. Tasmania, hello. Bourne, Texas. Hello, Warren in the UK. What is it, almost midnight there? Hillsboro, Oregon, too fast to scroll now. Charlie in Goldendale, Devin in Omak, Logan in Pittsburgh, Kansas, Fort Dodge, Iowa. The scroll is like sporadic now. I don't know why. It's kind of stationary and then it zips like crazy. So I'll just grab what I can. Thank you for punching in where you're viewing from. Charles in Red Bluff, California. Polly from Wisconsin. Ann is from East Wenatchee. Something, Idaho. Hello from Silesia. Hello, Simon in Langford, UK. Warren, it's 11 p.m. for Warren. He's got nibbles. I don't even know what that means, man. Brandon, South Dakota. Jennifer, hello, from Boise, Idaho. Skipping work, so make it good. I'll try. David in Las Vegas. George in Sacramento. John in Siloam Springs, Arkansas. Well, I'm glad that we're communicating. We have about 325 right now. I'll give you one more look at everybody, and then I got to get my head right. I got to start saying something meaningful. And as I twirl you around, I'll let you know that I'm going to be yelling again. It's a big group, and I tried to get them to sit kind of closely to me so that I wouldn't be yelling, but I don't know. What do you think we got? 150? 200 maybe? Not sure. Firestone, Colorado. Josie from Boise. Muffler boy coming down the grade. Can you hear that? There's a semi way across the river. Okay. Thanks for joining us. We're going to start in 2 minutes. I got to start concentrating. Frank, how are you? Good. Perfect day. Dolores, we drove all the way from Seattle. Why isn't that guy doing something? Why are we just all sitting here?
Watching you drink water. Woohoo!
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to start, okay? Are you going to stay right there?
Yep.
Okay.
250 watchers. So.
Did you count? Mom counted? About 250?
Well, that was just online already.
Oh, people watching at home, yeah. I'm curious about here.
Yeah.
That'll be a little job for you if you want. If you want.
Oh, you can count all the people.
Yeah. So you stood up for me now. Now I have to point you out. I'll do it right now before we start. So you see this guy right here? Manuel. Manuel's in my one-on-one class, and we were talking this morning before class. Front row Manuel. I said, Manuel, where are you from today? He's like, I live in Vantage. I'm like, you live in Vantage? I'm going to be giving a talk at 3 o'clock in Vantage. And Manuel says, I'll be there. He lives right over there, and he skateboarded here from his house.
Whoa.
So you're by far, well, I was going to say you're by far the youngest guy, but you're not. But thanks for coming here, man. This is a sneak peek on what we're doing tomorrow in class. You don't have to come to class tomorrow. How about that? You're going to hear it all here. Okay. Good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for coming. Oh! We haven't been busted. Nobody's come in and said, what is this? You know, you need a permit to organize or whatever. I don't know. Like, things are low key here, and we are good. And I'm so glad that you're with us. I would like to quickly go through the format of what I have in mind, especially if you're new to one of these, either in person or online. This is a pop-up geology event, and so the idea is we congregate, we talk, we do some back and forth, we do some question and answer. People from around the world are watching in real time, and then we're just gone, and nobody's here 2 hours from now. So that's the idea, and it's wonderful to have you with us. If you saw the other two pop-up events, here's what I am trying to do with these. I'm trying to use the place that we are. Terrible grammar, but I'm trying to say that we don't have maps, we don't have a PowerPoint screen, we don't have handouts, we don't have anything kind of tactile. Instead, we just have a view. And I'm going to be moving our home viewers around as we point things out. You are certainly welcome to get up and turn around or whatever if we're pointing us out something in the back. I don't want you to be anchored to your chairs necessarily. But we are going to use this view kind of organically. That's the hope of these pop-up events. And it is guaranteed, not guaranteed, it is designed to be back and forth. And so I hope that I can stay regimented and keep my comments to under 30 minutes. We'll see how it goes. And then it will be time for us to go back and forth with live question and answer. And that's not only people here in the flesh, and there's more than 200 people here, I guess, but also home viewers. Some of these guys are watching your comments right now on their phones, just a few of them. And they're going to be reading some of your uppercase questions out loud with the group, so you will be here in a way. Finally, I'd like to say that the first part of what I will talk about is descriptive, because science, if science is done properly, we separate our observations from our stories. If it's all stories, it's worthless. If it's just all stories, anybody can tell a story. Anybody can just make stuff and pull it out of thin air. We need to make sure that our stories fit the observations. And so I'd like to start with just simple landmarks, elevations, a few descriptive words about the basics of the bedrock here. And then we can tell a few stories. There are a couple of major themes. You can guess what one of them is right now, I'm sure. Some of you are sitting on petrified logs right amongst you here. So of course we have to talk about the petrified wood, but there's more to talk about than the petrified wood. Okay, so descriptive time. That's the Columbia River, but it's not really a river anymore. It used to be a very impressive, fast-moving river with white water in places, rapids in other words, and today it's a reservoir, it's a lake. Almost everybody here knows this, that in the 1960s in this area we built some dams to stop the river, to harness the hydroelectric capability, And along with that project to turn the river into a lake, we put a freeway up and over this reservoir in the 1960s. So I can't tell, I think you guys can see just a little bit. There's the Vantage Bridge, and Interstate 90 is crossing Wanapum Reservoir off there in the distance. Directions-wise, you guys are looking east right now. Not only the home viewers, but you guys here. Now you're looking north. Now the home viewers are looking west. And then we can even peer to the south and see a little bit of Sentinel Gap. Again, you're welcome to get up and turn around if you've never seen Sentinel Gap before, but it's a place where that beautiful ridge called Saddle Mountains has a hole in it, and that's where the Columbia River has been flowing for a long time. Sentinel Gap. Okay, while I've got you turned around, this building here is a museum. It's not open right now, but during the tourist season, this is a place to go in. It's a state park here, Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park. There's all sorts of petrified wood and other displays on the inside. I'm still just describing things, however. What else can I describe? This, yeah, you can see it. There's an old road right down here. So before this freeway was constructed in the 1960s through here, this was the main road between Seattle and Spokane. And you would have come down Frenchman Coulee, which is to the northeast of us, and that old road, called the Sunset Highway for many decades, flowed along the flat floodplain. So in other words, what's underneath that lake right now? There's an old floodplain, an old flat area that did not have the Columbia River, and there was just a skinny little strip of water called the Columbia River. For thousands and thousands of years, we just had a skinny Columbia River and a broad floodplain that you would have to drive across or hike across, and there used to be a ferry here before 1926. Okay, good. Looking to the north, we can see a change in color. Oh, there's a jet. Oh, good. Jet boy. It's like the Super Bowl or something, like they're flying the round of applause for the noisy jet. Okay, great. Actually, let's look across the river. Pretty good view, even for the home viewers. I think you can make this out. We've got all sorts of big semi-trucks going back and forth. That's Interstate 90, and you notice that the freeway is not perfectly flat. The freeway is down to the lower right, and then the freeway is climbing to the upper left. Just describing now, not telling any stories yet. The rock layers across the lake are not perfectly flat. And that freeway was built in harmony with the slight tilting of those bedrock layers. Now let's get interesting right off the bat. I'm still not going to tell stories, but do you notice at least one place, how can I describe it? Above the road, there's a triangular patch that's not brown, but it's a bunch of light gray. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm pointing right here to it right now. Right across the river, there's a place above the freeway where you lose the brown bedrock and you see just a patch of gray. And if you follow that gray over to the right, there's a little bit of a canyon, a little bit of a gully that's cut into it. Put that in the back of your mind. There's a story from those gray gravels over there. Some pros already know what I'm talking about. Okay, I was, before the jet came through, wanted to talk about the fact that we have a pretty prominent bench right across the way. So in other words, there's one of those chocolate brown layers. This is basalt lava rock, 16.1 million years old, and it's making up this prominent bench. And then there's still chocolate brown bedrock above that bench, but it's not as obvious. It's not as cliffy. And we can follow that all the way back to the west towards Ellensburg. It's over the ridge, by the way. And there's layers. You can, in that beautiful canyon over there, we can see some of the chocolate brown, but we don't have quite the cliff formers above this prominent bench that we do in other places. Elevations. I have notes. Still trying to be disciplined. Thank you for your attention. Big group, you can hear a pin drop. I appreciate it. Our elevation right here at the museum, roughly 800 feet above sea level. 800 feet above sea level. The level of the lake/river, 600 feet above sea level. So we're 200 feet above water right now. The elevation of the former Columbia River channel, right? Before we put the dam in, before we made the lake, that's 500 feet. So in other words, 100 feet below the level of that lake is the floodplain and the old Columbia River gravels in the Columbia River channel. 100 feet of water, in other words, I'm rounding to the nearest 100. Setting you up for something. What's our elevation here at the museum? 800 feet. Ryegrass Summit, many of us crossed on the freeway to get here from Ellensburg. So I'll describe. It's about a half an hour drive from Ellensburg here. So Ellensburg is a half an hour to the west of us here. To drive this way, Jeff from Vinmans and others drove from Ellensburg, that's about 1,500 feet elevation, and we climbed 1,000 feet to get up to Ryegrass Summit. There's some rest area up there on I-90, ryegrass, 2,500 feet roughly, and then we descend down here to 800 feet elevation at Vantage. God, is this guy stalling? What's going on? Like, you know, let's get to the good stuff. Okay, we're going to start right now. There are two main themes that are important here. And 30 years ago, I was right here listening to that guy in the khaki. You mind raising your hand, Jack? This is Jack Powell. And Jack Powell has been a geologist here for 50 years plus. And I was brand new to the area. And the first field trip I went on was me and Jack and my dad and Bob Bentley and a few others. And Jack was giving us all a crash course in what's going on right here. And I remember Jack saying that morning, Saturday morning, it's raining like hell. Mike McCormack was there. He said, there's two stories here. There's a story of lava and there's a story of water. And that's what I want to do too here. These petrified logs that are clearly the star of the show here at the museum are from 16.1 million years ago. And therefore these lavas are 16.1 million years old. And what do you mean therefore? Well, these petrified logs have been pulled right out of this basalt lava. And let's stop right there. You need to know about George Beck. So in other words, I took over from Jack Powell in the geology department. And before Jack, by a couple of decades, there was a guy named George Beck. And George Beck was the geologist. He was the geology professor at Central Washington University from 1925 until 1960. 1925 to 1960. And I'm sharing George Beck with you today because it was Beck who was the first guy to document all this wood, to make arrangements to work with government to create this state park. And remember, this was the road back then. So to get to this park, you had to get off and exit off the Sunset Highway, just like that guy's doing right now. That guy's lost. He's probably looking for us. I don't know. And he's taking the old road right now. He's taking the old road up the old entrance to this Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park. But the reason I mention George Beck right now is that for at least the early part of Beck's career, he was publishing on this petrified wood, and in his published reports was saying, we got petrified logs right out of lava. And nobody in geology believed him. Now you've heard this story before in all branches of the sciences, maybe all walks of life. Like something's unusual, I don't believe it. That's not what I've been told, that's absolutely wrong. And George here, George Beck, in the 1920s and 1930s, took a lot of heat from the geological community. And I have an old audio interview where he's reflecting on his career, and as he's telling the story about his early struggles with other geologists, he said these geologists kept telling me, look, either you don't know how to identify petrified wood or you don't know how to identify lava, but you can't put those two together. There'd be no way that the petrified wood could survive in a lava flow. And he says, well, you want to come out and visit? 1927, I don't know, you want to get here somehow? I'll show you. We're pulling these logs right out of the pillow zones at the base of the Ginkgo lava flow. And these logs that you are sitting among were not collected by George Beck. As I understand it, please correct me, Jack, these are from the construction of Interstate 90. And as they were excavating to put in the freeway up and over ryegrass, they were harvesting some of these logs to put the road in, and then the logs were placed here. So I'm not sure these logs were here back in the 40s and 50s, let's say. But they're from here, they're from this local story, and to expand now, again, we're enjoying the view here together. There are just a couple of very key horizons where these logs have been found. The most famous is that frickin' bench over there, man. In other words, if you just get on that bench and follow it north, get on that bench and follow it south or east or west, this is the Columbia River Basalt Group. It is the German chocolate cake. It is the province that has 300 layers, bottom to top. But right here is one of the best places to find petrified wood, and that's why this museum location is here. Some of you have been 2 miles to the west up the old Vantage Road that they've just improved, and you've hiked among some of the logs that are still in the land and caged over, you know, and all that. Okay, I guess that's interesting. Is there anything really mysterious about these logs? Yes. The major mystery that remains unsolved is this. Why do we have so many different kinds of trees that are petrified in this single location, on this single horizon? And you're like, what do you mean? This is Ginkgo petrified forest. Isn't that a Ginkgo? Isn't that a Ginkgo? Aren't these all Ginkgos? It's called Ginkgo petrified forest. The answer is no. There are dozens of tree species that are preserved on this horizon, right at the boundary between the Grand Ronde lavas below and the Wanapum lavas above. But they're all sitting right next to each other. Trees that never grow right next to each other. Are you getting interested now? I mean, I'm talking about crazy variety of trees. You want examples? Can I remember them? Redwood, ginkgo, oak, spruce, hemlock, cypress, sweet gum. Same thing? I don't know. Give me some more. Beech. Walnut. In other words, example. Douglas fir. Thank you, young man. Let's get you on camera for that. I'm no botany guy, but there isn't a forest on planet Earth today, is there, that has all of those trees growing together? We need different climatic conditions. We need different elevations. We need all sorts of different conditions. And yet these logs, pulled right out of the base of the Ginkgo lava flow, are here. So for sure, according to Beck's work and others, they did not grow here. So that solves that. We have a petrified forest. I don't know why people get off the freeway and stop here. Do they think, oh, the kids need to run around a little bit? Probably. We're going to go like walk amongst the ginkgo trees. Well, they're not standing. But even if they were standing, they weren't standing here. And it wasn't just ginkgo, it was all these different varieties of trees. So these trees were moved here. from different locations and then petrified before the next lava flow came in, for sure. So the energy is great just at the moment. So let me take advantage of this. We're going to talk about Ice Age floods in just a second. That's the other major theme here. And the petrified wood and the lavas are from 16.1 million years ago, and the Ice Age floods are almost today. They're less than 1 million years ago. So there's 16 million years between this lava and wood story and the Ice Age floods. And the reason I'm being very careful about that is because it's common for people, maybe when we start doing our live Q&A, to combine the two ideas. Well, when the floods came down, I'm sure those trees just came from Canada and the Missoula and everything. There's 16 million years between bringing these trees in, petrifying them, and then these Ice Age floods. Okay, we can pursue the petrified wood far deeper with you with live Q&A in just a bit. It's 20 after. Wink, wink. Let's change topics really quickly. Try to keep things moving. Part of the reason I gave you the elevations here is because of the Ice Age flood story that's here. So what in our field of view is evidence that some crazy amounts of Ice Age water swept right over us. We can barely see the mouth of Frenchman Coulee. That's evidence. We can barely see Sentinel Gap way to the south, and Sentinel Gap was clearly enlarged or widened by the Ice Age floods that drained through that area. But you're like, I don't know, maybe, if you say so, I guess, but I don't really see what you're talking about. The most hands-on piece of evidence that Ice Age floods were here, almost certainly multiple times, are these hillsides. Okay, on this beautiful afternoon, it's about 60 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe more. Just looks kind of brown. But have you been out there? Have you walked around at all? It is common to find rocks up on those slopes that are not basalt. They're not brown. They're not part of the bedrock. Some of them are as big as the museum. Some of them are as big as that RV over there. Some of the rocks are as tiny as my thumbnail. But they're not basalt. They're erratics. Ice rafted erratics. Rocks that were swept in here, either by the floodwater itself. We're talking about the Ice Age floods now. Why doesn't the guy say Missoula? Well, I'm on a new Jag. I was just up in British Columbia last weekend. I got across the border. And I spent the weekend, applause for the border officials, thank you. I spent the weekend with a guy who has been doing a lot of work on the BC side with the glacial deposits. And he has amazing landforms up there that all talk of huge volumes of water flowing south towards Washington. And so for years I've been telling the story of the Missoula floods. And there definitely was a glacial Lake Missoula, and there definitely was some Ice Age floodwater coming from Missoula. But after this weekend and a few other instances, I'm starting to realize pretty clearly, and I'm hoping in the next 20 years there's more momentum with this. I think a lot of water came through here from Canada personally, and I would love to be able to share new scientific papers that have been done on this water coming down the Okanagan, which is exactly what I'm saying. It doesn't matter, we have evidence for Ice Age floods here. Let me give you an elevation specific. He goes to the notes in his pocket. Gold star for somebody. What's the elevation of where we are right now? Oh! Wow. Gold star for everybody. Manuel, nice. I read your lips over there. Our elevation is 800 feet above sea level. 800 right here. If we start climbing spend the rest of the day before we lose light, and we hike up 400 feet. If we gain 400 feet elevation as we head up in this direction, as a guy named Ryan Carlson did almost 20 years ago, covered every square inch of this land on foot. He works for state parks, but he did a master's thesis for Carl Lilquist at the college in Ellensburg, and Carlson found thousands and thousands of erratics, of granites, of metamorphics, of different kinds of metamorphics, schists and migmatites and quartzites, rhyolites, all sorts of rocks that were clearly brought in here. But here's the best part. He got up to 1,200 feet elevation, 400 feet higher than us. We're at 800, right?
Yes.
So 400 feet higher than us, there's a place where those erratics stop. You never find one erratic higher than that 1,200 foot mark. Technically it's 1,263, but I'm rounding, okay? The point is, if you get up to ryegrass and start getting out at the bathrooms and start wandering onto the firing range or whatever, I don't know what you're doing, but if you're out there looking around, you're not going to find any erratics. In other words, there's a high water mark that is clearly reconstructed based on finding these rocks that were brought in by the Ice Age floods. And you're like, okay, I think I follow you, but I'm confused. If that's the high water mark of the Ice Age floods, whether it's Missoula water or Okanagan water or Glacial Lake Columbia water, whatever it is, why would the rocks be deposited at the high water mark? Why wouldn't they all be deposited at the bottom of the valley? And the answer is, there were icebergs in the water. And the icebergs exist because we broke an ice dam, and the ice dam had big rocks in it. I know it sounds like I'm making it up now. There's good evidence to back this up. So as we look at this view and enjoy this view together, can you visualize this? First of all, can you visualize 400 feet of water, probably chocolate milk in color, coming right down the main guts of this valley? The fastest water is going to be coming down the middle of the valley. And there's icebergs floating in that Ice Age floodwater, and that stuff's cruising straight for Sentinel Gap and probably not even slowing down, just shooting right through. Okay? But what happens if you have a flood and there's 400 feet of water and that water is up in these side canyons? It's going to slow down. And it seems likely, doesn't it, just from what we know about current floods, that there'll be some big eddies, some big kind of circular motions of that flood water getting hung up in each of these side canyons. Of course, I'm not just talking about here. I'm talking about that same ice-rafted erratic perching business above Wenatchee, above Chelan, above Tri-Cities, above all these places on the margins of these major Ice Age flood pathways. But it's the rocks that tell us that this is not a fairy tale. And it's very difficult to explain those rocks if you don't have an Ice Age flood story. What rocks? The rocks that are not basalt. The rocks that were clearly brought in there by water. My final thought, and then we're going to open up for questions. That's a warning for you to get your question ready. I don't know if you really saw what I was pointing out or not, but I'm going to try one more time. We're looking to the east side of the river. We can see the white trucks going back and forth. The layers have been tilted a little bit. They've been folded. Not a big deal for us, but they used to be flat. They've been tilted. That white truck right there, it's climbing. The white truck that's climbing, do you see a big triangular gray patch above it? Those are gravels that were dumped in there by the Ice Age floods. And you're like, oh, come on. Wasn't that like the highway crew like put them in there? There's too many. There's too many of those rocks. Now, I'll grant you that this next gray patch underneath the freeway, that's the highway guys. But why would they dump a bunch of rocks up above the road? And if you carefully look at that, there's tons and tons and tons of gravels there that are metamorphics and granites from north of us. Some of them from Montana, some of them from Canada, some of them from wherever. And there's more examples as well. I'm getting greedy now. You see the radio tower, the cell towers way over your right shoulder now. Up at, who owns that, Spud Brown? I'm going to point out one more patch of these Ice Age flood gravels. So you see the 3 cell towers together? Now come to the left on the skyline, come to the left of the 3 cell towers. You're still in the skyline, and now drop down. And do you see another package of light gray gravels that are in that little wedge? That's another Ice Age flood package. It's not sand that blew out of the Columbia. There's some sand dunes over there too, but again, the volume is too much to be an Ice Age, not an Ice Age flood story. Okay, I'm having a great time. Honestly, like this is just perfect. So thank you again. I want to say 2 final words and then we'll open it up to questions. We know how to identify different kinds of petrified logs because you truly cut the log like you would cutting logs for your firewood in the backyard this time of year, and then you take photos of the wood cell structures. So I think if you haven't looked at these logs that are out here together yet, you'll be amazed at how much like wood these things look like. The preservation is perfect, even though the logs have been stone for more than 16 million years. This is a whole collection of petrified log polished slabs that were donated to our department from Audie Turner's family from Yakima at the Liberty Rock Shop. So this is my favorite, even though I don't know what kind of wood it is. But if you wanted to just get a little hands-on about a polished slab since the museum's closed, this is for you. And finally, mostly for the home viewers, there's our petrified logs in the pillow zone at the base of one flow called the Ginkgo flow. Come on up afterwards if you want to see it. And last thing, I have all of the original journals now from George Beck. His grandson still lives in Yakima, also named George. I'm talking about George Beck, the guy who worked at Central from 1925 to 1960. He's no longer with us, but his grandson, who's retirement age, is still working at a saddle shop by the Fred Meyer in Yakima. And George has been working with me over the last 5 years about all these materials from his granddad, as he calls him. And so we have all the original journals from George Beck, who did his work here back in the 1920s and 30s. And some of that's with us, and some of those journals and samples are with the Burke Museum at the University of Washington. I think I'm done. It's time for you, but thank you for your attention, everybody. Okay, I'm going to repeat your question so everybody can hear it. I'd like this to be brisk and peppy. And also, if you're keeping an eye on the live chat and you want to ask a home viewer's question, please do it as well. Who wants to get us started?
I will.
Please.
What's the extent that we know of the Ginkgo flow that contains the wood up and down the river?
Each of these lava, the question is, this is the Ginkgo lava flow, the one that has all the beautiful logs in the base of it. How far laterally does the Ginkgo flow go? It's a good question because not all 300 basalt layers is the same width. So I call it a German chocolate cake, but it's like somebody screwed up baking it. You know, some of the layers are very thin and others are the full plate. The Ginkgo flow goes as far south as Biggs Junction. How about north? How about east and west, Jack, for the Ginkgo flow? Yakima River Canyon for the west side. And to the east, Ginkgo flow.
Probably Ritzville.
The Ginkgo probably goes as far east as Ritzville. So it's not the full extent. You know, these Columbia River basalt lavas in total go all the way to Central Oregon. They go all the way to Spokane and even into Idaho. They go up north of, up by Omak, but this Ginkgo flow does not go all that far compared to those others. More, thank you. I'll try to keep it brisk, yes?
Now, you said that the petrified logs were found in pillow
Yes.
lava. Does that mean it came through some water and that's what helped do the petrifying of the wood?
Absolutely. So I've mentioned casually that these logs are all pulled out of the pillow zone of the base of the Ginkgo lava flow. Pillow lavas tell us that the lava went into water. Again, this is 16.1 million years ago, not the Ice Age. So there were some temporary freshwater lakes here. The lava is going into the lakes, and it's the water that's protecting the logs. So if it wasn't for the lake water, the Ginkgo flow would come over all these logs and burn them all up. But the role of the water is crucial in preserving the log structures. Yes? You got it, yep.
How widespread is the petrified wood found?
The question is, how widespread is the petrified wood found? If we're just talking about the Columbia River basalts, it's this horizon here at the top of the Grand Ronde flow, the base of the Ginkgo. There's 2 or 3 other horizons that have lots of petrified wood in them, maybe not as much as this layer. And so we're back to just visualizing how laterally can we go. Down to Roosevelt, I mean, some of you are petrified wood hunters. Like, what are some other places that you are regularly finding petrified logs in the Northwest here? Saddle Mountains, these layers. More? Moses Coulee, yeah, so you know, it is kind of a central Washington story generally, central to southern Washington, but it's not like we have petrified logs in every layer, for sure not. You can think of them as buried forest horizons, and there's just a few horizons that yield this wood. Yes?
How long does it take for the fresh flow to cool down and crystallize?
Difficult question. How long to take a liquid hot flow and turn it to solid rock? Is that a day? Is that a week? Is it a year? Is it a century to go from 1,000 degrees centigrade down to rock that you can touch? I don't think anybody knows. You want to try? What do you say?
They've looked at the Hawaiian ones, and it takes decades.
Even in Hawaiian flows, it takes decades to totally cool. And of course, the thickness of those Hawaiian flows are, you know, knee high compared to some of these lavas that are 100 feet thick. But it's very difficult to answer your question accurately. Yes?
You've said before that we've had, what, 33?
Now we're in the Ice Age, and we have 33 warm times and 33 cold times, glacials and interglacials.
Right, so if you've got stuff washing down with 33 floods,
Yes.
we can assume that some of that came before the lava?
Thank you. Thank you. So the question is, we know a lot now about multiple advances and retreats of glaciers around the world. It wasn't all 15,000 or 16,000 years ago. We have good evidence now globally that there were earlier ice advances, earlier cold times, going back more than 1 million years ago. So can we really say that all these erratics were brought in during one event, let's say 15,000 years ago? I don't think we can. I agree with you. But as you go further back in the Ice Age, go earlier in the Pleistocene, there's less and less that survives. And that's always the problem in geology. You know that you're biased towards the most recent events because the older stuff was probably beautiful, but it got destroyed or washed away. So it's very difficult to come up with that chronology. Let's involve more here. Yes?
So we get an idea of how the logs got petrified because they were sitting in water, but where did they come from then?
Good. So the question is, so we know that the water protected the logs, but are we really ignoring the question about where the logs came from? I think we kind of are, because Beck, almost 100 years ago, was speculating where they came from. If this museum was open, you would see some displays talking about volcanic lahars. Like Mount St. Helens, y'all remember that cement stuff coming down the Toutle, wiping out the bridge, and carrying trucks and logs and all sorts of stuff. So for a while, based on Jack Powell's work and others, we were entertaining, and we're still entertaining, the role of lahars, or at least debris flows, rafting some of these logs out of the Cascades at different elevations. That could do it. I don't know how that works with cypress and swamp, whatever, but we can get different kinds of wood species coming from the Cascades and somehow washing east into this area. But the Cascades probably weren't as tall as they are now. And Beck, in his notes, was thinking about the Okanagan and was thinking about bringing different trees from different elevations and different local climates coming down from the north. Again, this is before the Ice Age floods, right? This is 16 million years ago. So it's still unresolved. I need to involve as many as we can here. Yes?
So if I'm understanding you, we're at roughly the junction between the top of the Grand Ronde and the bottom of the Wanapum Ginkgo slope.
We are.
If we look across at all the layers across the river, can we tell that junction?
We sure can, thank you. The question is, we're at a very important boundary between big fat Grand Ronde lavas and wimpier Wanapum lavas. And who cares about that? Well, the petrified log horizon is right here where we're sitting. The question was, can we find that same horizon across the way? And that's an easy one, because it's the frickin' freeway. The freeway is the same level as us. So I think you know what you're going to do after this. You're going to get in that rig, you're going to go over there, you're going to park on the shoulder and start looking for wood, because that's the same horizon. Except we've had the Ice Age flood sweep the surface pretty cleanly. Yes?
So as I imagine, we've got these logs, they've been rafted in from all over the place.
Yeah.
They become saturated and maybe perhaps sunk to the bottom of the lake.
Yes.
We've got a lake here, we've got the Grand Ronde flow that has come in, and it's fairly thick and hard. So we've got evidence 16 million years ago of a very large lake in the vicinity.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So that's there. So we got,
You got it.
so we've got all these logs in the bottom, and it's a big lake, goes all the way to Ritzville, goes all the way to Yakima, goes all the way down to Biggs, and we got all these logs hanging in here. They, fill up with water, sink to the bottom, and then we get another lava flow, comes in and buries them.
It seems like it's just that one flow, that Ginkgo lava flow, that is sealing off that lake that you're beautifully describing. Probably not much topography. It's probably pretty flat. So it's like Nebraska here.
Okay.
And then we got this huge inland freshwater lake with all these logs in it. And then somebody turns on the lava switch, and here comes this big Hawaiian-like flood basalt that's going to seal over Nebraska and preserve those logs in the base of that flow. Yes?
Yeah, I got one of your onliners here.
Oh, good. Thank you. So we have one of your live questions. Please keep those coming.
Okay, and this is George.
This is George.
George Chessel, and he's asking about what was the source of the Canadian Ice Age floods and where did they enter Washington? This is back when you had...
Thank you, George, for the question. A little off topic for us. So I just threw in the idea, because it's fresh in my mind, that there's potentially an Ice Age flood source from British Columbia on the other side of the border. But George is asking about exactly where. And all I can say, because it's not even really published and accepted yet, is that when we had the ice sheet covering Canada, the debate currently is how much water is underneath that ice sheet. Is there a lot of water moving energetically under while the glacier is there? And that's a departure from the usual talk of a bunch of water out in front of a melting glacier. This is different. This is like we're in Antarctica, huge ice sheet, bunch of water at the base, and it's not just lake water, it's energetic tunnel valleys with fire hoses of water spraying a bunch of sediment out from underneath, like, I don't know, Moses Coulee. So thanks, George, but a little bit off topic here. Way in the back, we need more, yes?
This lake system before the Ginkgo flow, is this the Ringgold Formation?
It's not. It's hard to keep these things straight. So the question is, this lake in central Washington, is that the Ringgold Formation? Some of us know the White Bluffs, and those are the Ringgold layers, and some other places have Ringgold. Too young. Ringgold's too young. Ringgold is less than 8 million years ago. So it's kind of after the lava story and way before the Ice Age flood story. So you're right, that's an inland freshwater lake, but too young for this story. Yes?
Yeah, I was kind of maybe making a bad assumption, but as you were describing things, I had the impression that the logs were petrified before the lava came over them.
The comment's less question is, are we really sure that the logs were petrified when the lava sealed off the lake? Or is it possible all the logs were turned to stone before the lava came in?
So you need the silica.
You need silica to do the petrification.
The best way to get silica is to take, and you have those logs, they're saturated with water, so and you don't find them in the lake actually anymore. They're up in the lava flow because they're picked up and they go up into the lava flow. And they're cooled off by the lava, or they're cooled off by the water so that it doesn't burn them up. But you have a lot of glass in the lava, basaltic glass, from hitting that. If you decompose basaltic glass, it liberates a whole lot of soluble silica. Soluble silica moves through the ground until it hits a source where it wants to precipitate, and it might form a chert or an opal or a jasper. But if it hits wood, then that carbon is a geotechnical sponge that just sucks up all the silica in the area. So they were petrified while they were in the lava, in the basalt itself.
Thank you, Jack.
And another cold one.
Oh, round of applause! I think that was the best answer of the afternoon. Here's a few more, and then I think I don't know, I think we'll keep going. Yes, sir.
Yeah, is the tilt here the usual crowd-pleasing topic, the clockwise rotation?
Yeah.
And how does the amount of tilt relate to, say, like Vantage Ridge?
Thank you. In general, these lava flows are no longer perfectly flat. Most of us know that in Geology 101 we assume that rock layers are originally horizontal in general. And if they're not flat anymore, something has happened to them. So we see our tilt that's pretty gentle here. If we follow those layers south, they disappear into the lake. Then if we get down to the Saddle Mountains and Sentinel Gap, which we can barely see, we've got a whole nother set of layers. So there's a big thrust fault over there. So we could go on and on with this question, but my basic answer is, because Northern California keeps getting closer to us every year, we keep shortening the crust. I'm talking about the clockwise rotation of the Pacific Northwest crust. And in some places, the layers just basically knuckle up in a beautiful, simple anticline, but that's rare. Most of the time, we take the flat layers of basalt, we knuckle them, and then we break them along thrust faults, and then we shove them up on a relatively low-angle thrust fault, like at Menashtash, like at Saddle Mountains, like at Horse Heaven, like at the Bunch. So the Yakima Fold and Thrust Belt is squeezing, tilting, breaking, creating earthquakes even today, all because of that clockwise rotation causing compression, some northwest, south, east compression. Applause? Just kidding. Yes. Steve. Yeah.
Is here 16 million years ago? As in, when was this created?
Cozy Fort Steve asks, 16 million years ago is way too young for the exotic terrain story, way too young for Silesia coming in and adding to make the Olympic Peninsula. So here is pretty much here, except for we've had 16 million years of North America moving 2 inches a year to the southwest. So I guess, if we look at the corner of that chimney, and that chimney was here 16 million years ago, the chimney would be over here some distance because of the movement of the tectonic plate. But I see what you're doing, Cozy Fort Steve, and it's always a challenge to take all these stories and sort them out mentally so that you don't combine them together. Yes? Way in the back.
What happened to the water when it was displaced when the lava came in?
What happened to the water, the lake water, 16.1 million years ago when the lava came in? I think the simple answer, it just flashes to steam. We have so much heat. It's happening so quickly we can assume that we're just sealing off the lake. It's evaporating or flashing to steam. I want to keep going. Yeah. Online, thank you.
This does pertain. This is from TL. Petrified wood extend up and down the extent of the river. Why in that particular locale?
TL, thank you for the question. You're wondering about the petrified wood. It's found more than just along this river. You can think of this as a chocolate cake with a bunch of layers, and just a few icing layers in the cake have these little matchsticks of petrified wood. And it's a question of where in the cake have we dug deeply enough to get to that goody-goody layer? It's here because the Columbia River and the Ice Age floods have exposed. Actually, that's another way to think about it. How many logs did the Ice Age floods get out of here, sweep out of here? And if we start digging, I'm not recommending it, but if we start digging, we get up on that bench and we just start digging, right on top of that hard layer, there's millions of petrified logs today, just in the hill. So it's always just a question of what has Mother Nature exposed for us, either catastrophically or not. We're going to do 3 more questions, and I think we're going to. Oh, yeah, young man, your question, please.
No, what happens if the lava gets to the trees? Since the lava would probably destroy the wood if it was not petrified before the lava came.
Thank you for the question. Very good. What's your name?
Rona.
Rona. Thank you. Very good question. I think we can agree that if a tree has hot lava coming towards the tree, it's going to light the tree on fire. And there's no way that tree is going to survive. It's just going to burn up because the lava is too hot. If we have the tree fall over, get moved in a river, get washed into a lake, and then have that tree be a log that falls to the bottom of the lake, then we can save the tree. And we can sit on the tree right now listening to a little lecture 16 million years later. So it's just a question of how can we save those trees, Ronan? And I think we did it with some freak circumstances long ago. 2 more and we're done. There was one over here, yes. How old is the Columbia River? Wow, good question. The Columbia River has to be older than 16.1 million years ago. And the reason for that is, today the Columbia River in many places is pushed to the edge of these basalt lavas. And so there's a little bit more evidence to suggest that the Columbia, can you do this mentally? The Columbia, we think, before these first lavas flooded central Washington, that the Columbia used to come out of BC over by Kettle Falls and just did a straight shot to Tri-Cities. Like, why wouldn't that be the easiest? Like it'd be a main tributary of the Columbia. This is before the giant lava flows, and that river's here. All I can say is it's older than 16 million years because these lavas were so profound that they pushed the Columbia River off of its original course. And today, between like Bridgeport to Chelan, that's still the Columbia River. Even down to Wenatchee, that's still the Columbia River at the edge of these lavas. That's not an accident. Right in through here, the Columbia decided to cut through the German chocolate cake instead of staying over there by Liberty and Cle which is the end of the Columbia River basalts over there. So I can't give you anything more than older than 16. I think
But
this is...
It had to been here since the Cascades formed this basin. So there had to be a drainage that was the Columbia River between the Rocky Mountains and the Cascades. So that would have gone back as 20 million or 25 million when the Cascades were coming up. It had to be at least some sort of big drainage in here at that time.
Good. So older than 16, and now Jack's reminding us that the Cascades have a 40 million year history, and we need an uplands there to create this watershed. So maybe as old as 40 million years ago. Last question, guy in the blue.
Hi. So in addition to the water source from glacial Lake Missoula, we're talking about the possibility of Canadian floodwater coming down. Is anybody respectable talking about the idea of maybe like a meteorite, like a massive meteorite impact hitting the ice sheet and instantly melting that all down?
Thanks for the question. The question involves the Ice Age floods and the source of the water and where did that water come from. And most of you know the story of the Ice Age floods, and most of the last century has been building a case for glacial Lake Missoula in Montana being the source of these Ice Age floods. Even here in central Washington, Missoula being the ultimate source. Now we do have dates for some of these floods, and that's a whole nother meeting, but there's ways to come up with some dates, and those dates are getting better and better. As I mentioned kind of casually, the dates we have, the flood paths that we know about, also seem to work with a potential source of water to the north of us. And I think that work will continue to progress. The last little twist in your question, there is a growing story online, at least, about a meteorite impact hitting the ice sheet, creating all of the Ice Age floods during something called the Younger Dryas. I'm all for that as an idea, but the dates of the Younger Dryas have no overlap with any of our dates for any of these flood deposits here in the Pacific Northwest by like a few thousand years. So I'm not willing to go there until we can at least get into the same time window. But to say everything's been figured out and only have one story is not the way to go either. Okay, what did we talk about? Petrified logs, Ice Age floods, a little bit about this reservoir, the museum, George Beck, Jack Powell, Backcountry Gary, Cozy Fort Steve. Thanks for coming, everybody. I appreciate you coming. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. We'll see you sometime down the road. Who knows when that'll be.
Oliver Stemple podcast blew me away. I was driving through Westupnacooley while I was listening to it, and listened to the second one back about seafloor spreading.
Nice. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad you listened. Thank you. I got to say goodbye to these guys here. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to just spend a few minutes with you guys, and then I'll be visiting with some of these folks. Thank you so much for joining us. I might enlist folks a little bit more about reporting your questions. I kind of half forgot about you, to be honest. 710 are still with us. I'll say hi to a few of you here. Creators of the Effin' Moon, thank you, Greg. Kimberly, Lisa, hi. Too fast to read, sorry. Jennifer from Boise, thank you. It's time to visit the state park again. Zazu, thanks to you for tuning in. Sawtooth Red, appreciate you tuning in and watching us here. Douglas Jenkins, Scott Depot, West Virginia, thanks for saying where you're from. And I'll just do a couple more minutes with you guys. Hi, Kay, Seattle if I recall. Garrett, the Dutch Night Owl. It's time for bed, Garrett. Saber, goodbye. MGO Fire, Lori, very nice presentation. Thank you very much for those nice comments. I'll enjoy rewatching this and seeing all the comments and all the questions. And again, I'm sorry that we didn't get to more of your questions. This group was a little reluctant to be monitors for you. I'll push that a little bit more next time. Okay. I think part of the problem was I had people like turn off their phones, like get them on airplane mode, because somebody suggested that would like help make sure I had 4 bars. I don't really know if that's true or not. So if you had a tip on that, if that's real or imagined, that would be helpful. But otherwise, I guess it's time to go visit. So I'll let this run for just a little bit. How about that? We'll just give you a chance to see a few more of these guys. Thanks so much. Hey! How are you?
I got here 5 minutes late, so I was afraid to ask, but where did all the lava come from?
Yeah, that's a whole nother story, but there were these fissures, these big cracks in northeastern Oregon that opened up magically. All this Hawaiian-like lava. Not mountains. Yeah, these are fissure-style eruptions. So a much larger version of what we see in Iceland, for instance. They just have these kind of cracks opening up in Iceland now, and all this Hawaiian-like lava comes out. But
So it flowed north.
it flowed generally north, but creeping all the way up past Spokane, creeping as far west as Cle Elum, as far south as Bend. It's a regional story, and yeah.
Is that the Wallowa area?
It kind of encircled the Wallowas. So the Wallowas are kind of granites, but you can see some of those. If you know the Wallowas well, there's places where the mountains are white, but there's brown vertical stripes. Those are the cracks. So the cracks open up, and then this lava comes up through the cracks. Very
Thank
cool.
you. You look great. You've lost weight.
Thank you.
And thank you for having these things close enough that I can come.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, yeah. You're 2 for 3, aren't you? I'm gonna keeping score now.
I was in class during the Leavenworth one, so I didn't get there.
Okay.
You're keeping score.
I'll wait for your note next time, your doctor's note, if you don't make another one. Thank
I
you.
just want to thank you, Nick.
Oh,
My
it's-
daughter is Kathy Strickland.
Oh, hey!
So I'm used to hearing this, but it was
Oh.
great listening to you.
Well, thank you. How's Cassie doing these days?
She's doing fine. She was with her daughter, otherwise she might have come with me
Oh, wow.
today.
Oh, that's
But,
nice. She's very smart. I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
She's very smart.
And always talking about it, and I don't retain it.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
repetition helps, huh?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Bob Grant from Casimir.
Hi, Bob.
And I wanted to ask you if you ride any motorcycles.
I don't.
Because I am the Saddle Mountain tour guide.
Oh, you are?
I know every inch of Saddle Mountain.
Oh, wow.
And I've done it where you can have access with motorcycles, but you can't access it walking. I see
Makes
stuff that
sense.
nobody else ever
Oh, I'll
sees.
bet you do.
So if
Well-
I have bikes, so if you ever want to go for a ride.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Would you
I-
mind sending me an email, maybe?
Yeah, I
Just
could.
so I can kind of have your contact info, and
Hey, thank
that'd
you.
be great. Thank you.
I love your show.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this off real quick, and then we'll visit. Hey, man. Good question. Oh, and you got your Junior Ranger vest on? Let me make sure these guys. Can see you here. You've got your. What was your name again?
Ronan.
Ronan. You've got it. I can't. I'm sorry, Ronan. What do you got here? Oh, did you find that right here?
Yep.
Why do you think those holes are in that rock like that?
Probably, I'd suspect it's part of the volcanic rock.
I agree with you. And these are little gas bubbles that were coming out of the lava when it was still red and hot. But thankfully, if I put this in your hand right now, it's not going to be. Is it hot?
Nope. Well, it's a little warm from the sun, but
A little warm from the
nope.
sun.
Not hot.
Okay. Thank you for coming. It's nice to meet you.
I was wondering where the part of the tree fossil comes from.
This came from the Yakima River Canyon, south of Ellensburg. But it's that same layer that we have here. Oh, now we have a drone. We've got a drone.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, State Parks is going to bust us now. That is for damn sure. I better turn this off before we get in trouble. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
Not our drone.
I love you. Goodbye.